activities, and hopefully we're going to give some ideas for activities. So if you come up to a situation like that and you are teaching or acting as professor in one of these opportunities, then maybe you can use some of these activities and take them away. Our information will be in here too if you like some of the activities and want us to send you an email with them. We're happy to do so. But anyway, so the last thing, just teachers are encouraged to implement differentiated instruction, and here are some basic benefits. Basically, that this differentiated instruction is positively linked with student engagement. Studies show that specifically in math and reading and biology, so this was a study early on, but we can only imagine what it would do for counseling students. And then another specific learning piece that we saw was when you combine words with pictures, it enhances learning of new material. And there were a lot of studies to attest to that as well, including color and all of that.
So for some of the benefits specifically for a counseling skills residency, I wanted to break this into what might be the benefits for students and then separately for faculty. For students coming into a residency, especially their first residency, but really any residency, there is a really high degree of anxiety. For many, it's the first time they're meeting their teachers and peers in person. For a residency, one experience where they're learning the basic counseling skills, it can feel like almost a do or die moment of like, now everybody's going to find out that I really shouldn't be a counselor. A lot of that imposter syndrome shows up with the students. Meg's nodding
Heck
along.
yes.
Yeah. So the anxiety, the emotions, it's just a really activated experience, especially in that first day. So one of the benefits of bringing in these multiple modalities is that it can help us help the students regulate. So meeting them where they're at, and then starting to calm the nervous system. And then, like Meg said, like noticing as you're going through the days, when the ebb and flow of the energy, if you can stay in tune to that as the faculty, you can shift your approaches. So certainly, lots of energy in the first couple of hours, but then it starts to come down. And, imagine after a lunch break or after you've been doing a certain activity for a while, we need to know how to bring the energy up when it needs to come up and bring it down when it needs to come down in the classroom as a whole, but also noticing our individual learners and where they might be. A lot of times a faculty might notice that there's a group of students who are just finding their rhythm and really clicking in. And there might be some other students who you also notice are shutting down or who are so activated that they're no longer taking in the information. And it's really important then to be able to pull from a toolbox of these creative strategies to be able to meet all those different kind of activation levels. So of course, specifically, then it can also decrease the anxiety. It's also really helpful for consolidating the information and the learning. So again, like Meg was saying, we have diverse learners, diverse in all ways, diverse backgrounds, diverse identities, and diverse learning styles. So to be able to say, I'm not going to expect you all to take in, consolidate, and understand this information and then be able to apply it effectively with only one teaching modality. I'm going to give you multiple doors to kind of enter through. So certainly offering the information maybe first, or it doesn't even have to be first, but of course we have the didactic approaches, me as a faculty teaching you in a traditional style, but then we're also going to try things out and we're also going to show a video, or maybe we add in a podcast so that they can hear a session. And maybe we do some creative artwork to bring out kind of what's going on inside as you're learning this material. How does it make sense to you? How does it resonate with you? It also certainly increases engagement and achievement. So I know when I was a student and as I'm a faculty, it's just more fun to do some creative activities. So students are going to be way more interested, engaged, paying attention. You're much less likely to get that sort of like glassy-eyed I'm sort of pretending to pay attention, but I'm definitely not paying attention anymore. Look, and studies have shown that it actually increases achievement levels. So your students are going to be more effective in learning these skills if they have creative learning activities. And then to foster self-awareness. So much of a counseling program, especially a counseling skills course, requires an openness for students to enter into in a more deep way than maybe they've done before, their own awareness of what comes up for them, where are their triggers, where are their insecurities, how are they responding when they're maybe in a role play and they're in their head and, you know, talking kind of the nasty self-talk to themselves. What's that about? How are they responding to their students who might be different from them? And so having some of these activities ready when those moments present themselves, but also using the activities to get students into that self-awareness activity as well. Because there will certainly be, just like in any population, in the counseling student population, there are going to be folks who are maybe a little resistant or avoidant of really connecting to their self-awareness at that deep level. It can be activating in and of itself. So we want to have ways that we can gently move them in to that self-awareness exploration, and also to intervene in a moment when it's coming up. For faculty, emotion regulation as well. I mean, I know even though I've done many residencies now, I always get nervous at the beginning. You have got a new group, you don't know what the dynamic's going to be. You're going to have maybe your own stuff going on that's coming with you, just like your students do. So being able to I keep doing this with my hands, and I guess I'm thinking of like, here's all the stuff I get to choose from. So if I'm noticing that I'm really activated and my students need me to be at a calmer, more grounded place, then maybe I'm reading the energy in the room, or they're going to read my energy. So we would all benefit from a grounding type of activity or something like that. Having multiple ways to convey the information really helps with our effectiveness of actually teaching, two, of the emotional regulation as well. When we want our students to learn. That's, you know, the goal of any instructor. So if we're seeing like, gosh, the way I'm explaining this, nobody seems to be getting it. I know for me, my frustration, and the students might be surprised to hear this, but my frustration goes back on myself. Like, why am I not teaching this effectively? Where the students might be, you know, interpreting it in a different way, saying, why am I not learning this? So to have all these different options to say, let's try it this way. Does this make more sense? Or maybe it'll click in if we move it over here and shift things a little bit. We've already talked about meeting the diverse learning styles. This also lets us get a really thorough assessment of the degree of student learning. I really love the in-person counseling opportunities, because I can see students who, like in our program, there are usually many core academic classes that students take before they do their first residency. So they're doing a whole lot of writing papers, a whole lot of discussion responding, and they're pretty used to doing that stuff by the time they get to residency. So I might be able to see who my learners are who are really great at writing, which is great. That's an important skill. But those learners might not have that same level of mastery when it comes to actually practicing the skills. So I can see where are the gaps and how can we fill these in so that from this point forward, my students are moving into year 2 of the program as a really well-rounded learner. Part of this, again, back to the self-awareness, I can see where my students might have some of their own stuff to work on. And it's an opportunity. It's not seen ever as a negative. But if I notice that, you know, the student A is really, really strong in writing, but has a really hard time managing their anxiety in front of people, or in front of a counselor, and they really get up in their head, and them getting up in their head really helps them do tremendous, you know, in-depth research for a paper. But then they're too up in their head to be, you know, in their body and attuned to their client. What a great opportunity for us to see okay, we need to add in some extra practice and skills, or we need to add in some emotional regulation techniques, and we can really round out that learning. And then getting students involved and interested. It's way more fun to teach anything when your students want to learn and they want to be there, and they're excited about what they're learning, and they say, oh, that was fun, or I get that, or I never thought about it that way. It's just a really rewarding experience for everybody.
I'm just following along so much. I forget I'm presenting also. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. And Meg, feel free to add anything, of course, from your
I was just, it was all resonating so much. Just the first of all, from a teacher standpoint, the glassy-eyed thing, like when you need to switch activities, when people are just like in a daze pretending to listen. And this is a good example, because we don't have eyes of the people that are listening to our presentations. So wanting to know how engaged everybody is and all that stuff. But from a student standpoint, and feeling that dread and imposter syndrome in the beginning, and then you did such a wonderful job of introducing activities right away that made me as a learner feel comfortable right away. And I think it's just such a beautiful practice, and really brings everybody down to a level that we're all human, we're all here. Let's start learning from a nice foundational standpoint. So but I wish I would have asked this in the beginning, but if everyone in the room wouldn't mind putting in the chat or saying out loud if their position here, if they're a student or a professor, or what part of counseling in general you're a part of. I think it would be nice to kind of know who's in the room, so we can kind of speak to that too.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, we're about to do an activity together, and I hope that y'all will want to participate. But student, professor, clinician, yay, supervisor. So if y'all have a phone, a smartphone, or if you have another window on your computer that you can use, this is just the first one that came up for me when I found an online free paint app. So we're going to do a little of that. Or if you have crayons and markers, there are colored pencils at your desk. Sometimes people do. If you are one like me, you have different colors on your desk. So go to this website, kleki.com. Dr. E has lots of colored pens. That's in the chat.
I do have lots of colored pens.
Student,
so does
professor.
Dr. Crowley. I got that from her.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Okay, well, so it looks like we have a mix. That's awesome. So hopefully, if you came to this, you are interested in creativity and want to participate in this little activity that we created. So when you get to this website, it'll just be, and if you do it on your phone, it'll just be a blank page, and you can swipe over the paint application, I guess, and play around in there. Because we're going to do, you see this little box, and it's not perfect. It has jiggly lines because I did it with my finger, but you'll just draw yourself 4 boxes, and you see I've labeled them with feelings, and feel free to play around and get to know the paint app, or if you have one on your phone already that you like to use. I did this ahead of time with some people so we could have some results that we can see on the screen. But you'll be able to kind of compare your results to what we've seen before too. And if anybody wants to share, I would love to see it on your screen. But we're gonna use color and shapes and lines to demonstrate what these feelings mean to you. The reason this activity came to be is just like during counseling residency, during this class, this was the first time that had been introduced to me that we were talking about, like, as a counselor, you don't want to just use the same words over and over. Like, you sound frustrated. And I know that that comes up a lot. Stressed comes up a lot. That's so hard, like using the same feelings. And I'm gonna show these, but maybe these look familiar, feeling wheels and all these lists of different feelings and putting them into different categories. And even though I feel usually good at vocabulary, maybe not when I'm presenting and nervous, but when you're trying to dive into deeper feelings, I was having trouble coming up with the synonyms and the deeper feelings that you want to call upon. And looking at these lists that are black and white, and this one's a little bit easier for me, but looking at these lists that are black and white and in columns was hard for me to take in because my brain works a little bit differently. So I created something for myself, and I'll show them a little bit. I'll show them on the screens after our activity, but I made myself some cards to help me with my intake of those feelings. And then Dr. E saw them and thought that it was interesting, just like how my feelings and how I presented them on paper and with color and shapes was different than maybe somebody else would have. And kind of this exhibits a little bit the idea that we all have different relationship to color and texture and shape, and how, like, when you're using creative modalities in class or even with clients as a clinician, that there may be some triggering things coming from trauma and all of that. And that's something also I want to mention, like, we are going to do this activity here real quick, and I'm sorry for the long introduction, but when you are entering into this, I hope that you'll take note that there could be some feelings that come up if you see different colors, or some things might trigger you. And so I hope that you'll also take care of yourself in this activity. So to start, if y'all are ready and have played with the app, I hope you all are enjoying the creative calm that it presents. So if you wouldn't mind drawing this box so that you can kind of section off, or if you just want to take it one at a time, and we'll do anger first. So I'll give you, like, I'll put a timer on for 1 minute, and take some time, and I'll do it too. So we'll all be active in this activity. So at Plakie.com, and do the anger. So try to exhibit with color, lines, shapes, the feeling of anger and what that brings out in you. Sometimes the app and figuring out the app can also create anger. Okay, it's been about a minute. If anyone wants to turn on their screen and show their anger on their yep. Lots of, like, scattered lines from
Ours
us.
are very similar, Meg.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else willing to share theirs? No pressure, but you're invited to.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Kristen.
Oh,
Love
Kristen, will
that.
you show your skin? I
Yeah.
didn't
Sorry,
see
it's
yours.
not actually working. Like it's like
Oh,
I have it on here, but it's not showing up
oh,
on.
but it's not showing.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Yeah.
Oh, there we
Oh,
can kind of
there I
see
can
it.
see. Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
yours looks similar too.
Yeah.
Nice. Thanks, Kristen.
Yeah, thanks. So I did this, I asked from social media, friends of mine to participate, and some of those friends sent in, and this is what they came up with for anger, and maybe it's similar to what y'all see in yours. So I thought the red comes up a lot with anger, and first of all, I think that's interesting. There's an article that I was reading kind of in preparation for this. It's called The Color of Trauma, by KJ Bowles. And they talk about how different colors bring up different feelings. And for a lot of us, it seems that anger is red. But important to note is that, like, red means different things to different people. And like, color can traumatize but color can also be like in China, red represents valor and courage. And I think that was very interesting. And perhaps had I done this survey while being in China, would I have gotten a different reaction from people as far as what the color of anger would be? And you see, there is a black here, and there's some blue mixed in and some orange. And it's just interesting to see how similar this is. But also keep in mind, my group of folks also may not be as diverse as the people that we're working with is either. So keeping that in mind, that this isn't a wild smattering of everyone. But oh, I'm looking at the chat too here. Oh no, couldn't get the app to work, Elise says. Picture drawing a chaotic drawing, kind of like the dust cloud around Lionel in the Snoopy cartoon. That's great. That kind of looks like this one over here in the bottom left corner. And a tornado. That's great. I love that. Sorry, thanks for answering that while I'm talking. Sorry. But I think then also what the article also addresses is, like, we have like, we are different colors of people as well. And it addressed, like, originally it goes into the history of identifying people with color, and Native Americans originally were identified as copper colored. And there was an interesting shift when it went to red, and red was the color identified with Native Americans. And we see this also correlation that anger is a color that we think of with red, and how that could be incredibly frustrating as a people group when you are identified with a color that also brings out anger in folks. And it's just interesting to think about and keep in mind that with color and with presentation and the triggering of that. And I know Dr. E, you had some like thoughts on that as well.
Yeah, I also, one thing I would be kind of watching for if I were having my students do this, relates to when I work with my clients who are often, survivors of pretty extreme trauma. And when they are doing artwork in session, red is very activating and often is associated with violence or blood. And so if my students were doing this, I would really be kind of checking in on the energy in the room, and like, not just as a whole, but like looking at, noticing, trying to attune to each student to see if there's anything overwhelming or uncomfortable coming up. And not that I would ask, staying in the professional boundaries, I wouldn't just try to enter into, tell them, are you having a trauma reaction? That wouldn't necessarily be appropriate, but I'd be paying attention to that.
Yeah. So I guess if anybody else, like, we would love for this to be a conversation piece too. If anybody else wants to bring up anything or anything they notice here, or if they've noticed in when they were drawing or whatever, please bring that up if you'd like. And we can move on to the next one. So the next one is going to be fear. I'll give you a minute to do fear. I'm glad I'm doing this too. It's kind of giving me a nice calming feeling while presenting. So there's my fear, like deep navy. Ooh, Dr. E. Small, kind of like, yeah.
Not that my fear is small, but like
Mhm.
that's where, trying to kind of keep it down in a corner. That's all in this
Ooh.
like kind of dark gray purpley box.
Whoa. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Anyone else want to share?
Looks like,
oh, it's Elise. We're on the same wavelength today. Small dot, like
yeah.
it's hiding and can't be seen. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Wow. Oh, the app. Here, let me go back to it.
And we can put it
Is
in the chat.
clayp.com. Yep.
I'll put it in there.
Yeah. So I guess if anybody else wants to add in theirs too, I don't want to start talking without it. Multicolored and scribbled lines leave the box and spread over to the other boxes, emotions and all outside the lines. Oh, kind of infiltrating. Gosh, and I think this can also be, I know we talk about using it for counseling and residency, and I am not a therapist yet, but I can imagine that this, like you can just draw so much conversation from writing your feelings down. And why do you think, Dr. E, why do you think you want to put your fear in this little box over here, asking those questions.
And there's the self-awareness piece of like helping students to move towards that.
Yeah. Oof. So good. Okay, well, so does anybody want to share theirs before I put up the next screen with fear? No pressure. Okay. All right, here comes fear. So there were a couple small ones, like y'all mentioned. Scribbly lines, kind of like Kim mentioned, like infiltrating. But I don't know. This one was interesting because it looked like fear takes on a lot of different feelings for a lot of different people. Whereas anger seemed a little bit more similar. But
interesting.
Yeah. So something to note here is from that article I was reading about how color can traumatize, talking about, again, about people in general and people of color and how we associate sometimes dark colors and with fear, and this culture around dark is fear, and how that can create that and possibly breed into systemic things that have gone on in our world. And how white is light and nature of God. That is something like in history, and I don't know, can also be a conversation piece there. But yeah, and I don't know if you have any thoughts you want to add on fear or conversation
No,
here. Yeah.
I think we can keep going.
Yeah. Okay.
That's great.
So, okay. So next one would be overwhelmed. Ooh. Okay. So I'll give you 1 minute to do overwhelmed. Okay. Overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed. If I had, oh, I like yours, Meg. If I'd had more time, there'd just be all over the screen.
Like dots,
Yeah,
colorful dots
dots,
all over.
all colors everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we have in the
Um,
chat?
my
Yeah,
picture
thanks,
is
Felice.
blank.
Yeah.
Yeah. Almost feeling paralyzed. Thanks for being so vulnerable, Felice. Thanks for sharing. Um, I I relate to water and feeling like I'm like underwater sometimes. If I'm overwhelmed, it's just like there's too much and feeling like I'm kind of drowning.
Mhm.
I think that's where my water comes from. But here is and feel free to share anybody else as well, but here is the things we came back with. This seem like spirals and
Mhm. Lots of
everywhere.
movement. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Lots of
Yeah.
orange multicolors. Yeah, Kim's is
Kim's.
multicolored, messy dots.
Yeah.
Squiggling. Yep, the
Yeah.
chaos.
Yeah. Sounds right. And it doesn't seem like there is a specific color here.
Mhm.
There was some orange, which was interesting, but I do have a tiny story about orange. So I'm going to pull that up real quick. So I had this, I am a step parent to a 10-year-old, and I had these cards laying out, and this one was laying out, and it's orange. And uh, his name's Leo. He picked it up and he was like, "This one's awesome. What does this mean?" He was like, "Helpless." No, orange is calm. And orange for me, I wore a lot of orange in high school, and I felt like I was not myself in high school. And so I always felt yeah, I felt not myself, not confident, not in my own power. And I think so to me, I correlate orange with helpless and not feeling confident. And for Leo, it's his favorite color. So orange is calm and happiness. And I thought that was so interesting that there was such a difference here. But
Mhm.
that's just a little one in my life. But it looks like it pulls from a lot of places. Okay, last one is joy. Let's do 1 minute of joy to finish off with the happy.
Good one to end on.
Yeah. Okay, feeling good?
Mhm.
All right, there's joy for me.
Oh, pretty.
Ooh,
Yeah.
growth.
And Felice says,
Yeah.
I picture drawing water coming up like a fountain in a pond. Yep, like this, but higher and like what a fireworks looks like. Yeah, nice Felice.
Whoa, fireworks. Take a look at this. There's like a lot of fireworks in here. Mine was kind of fireworky too.
Mhm.
But yeah, fireworks, rainbow. I love that
Mhm.
rainbow is a big part of this. Yellow, sunshine, vitamin D.
Mhm.
Um, One thing I wanted to note from the article here was like when rainbow came up, and I was thinking about the LGBTQ population and um, the this is kind of aside, but the pink triangle used to be a badge of shame during World War
Mm.
II, and like labeling folks, and it used to be shameful, but now it's this prideful image, and so can bring up trauma, but can also bring up wonderful empowerment and how it can mean two different things, and how powerful color can be, and like can imagine, I don't know, I don't want to get too far into, but like if there are experiences that you've had where color, like a very simple one for me with orange, like I probably wear very little orange now because it feels like I'm not myself. But so it's a small image for like any of these colors and what they could bring out in us. Um, so I know that we talked about this earlier. I'm going to kind of transition. If anybody else has anything else they want to say before we move forward a little bit. Anything for you, Dr. E? Okay. Color specifically can also trigger memory retention. So connecting color to like any prior learning can also help to retain memories, or retain information. So and luckily having that it helped with my feeling cards and everything. So I just wanted to bring them up so y'all could see them. But I tried to arrange these four in like what we had done. So anger, top left, and fear, being afraid. Happy, my joy was pinks and swirlies. And then I already showed you the helpless card. But I did like that Dr. E, you had mentioned originally when you first saw these with anger, and how anger is more of a surface feeling, but there's usually something hiding behind it.
Mhm.
And how anger, yes, maybe our first like color feeling is red, but having all of these background colors because maybe there's fear in there, hurt in there, and different feelings there. But just wanted to show kind of what stemmed this presentation and why we're doing this here today. And this is I'm going to transition into activities that students can do during counseling and residency. But this is something that I chose to create because I was like I said, I was feeling like I wasn't taking in these feelings and needed to put some color to them myself. So this is an activity that it looks like it turns out really nice, but is so easy for, and I've tried it out on all of my non-artistic friends, but just painting with watercolor and making splatters of whatever you're feeling, and then take this like mindfulness time of taking just a black pen and outlining each piece, and it's a really therapeutic way of calming down at night, and whatever I needed to come down after all the feelings of counseling residency. And this is one of the big pieces that helped me, was painting with watercolor and then letting it dry, and then just surrounding each area. A lot of my friends have tried this and started using it as like calm down while they're watching TV at night. So I recommend this activity first and foremost because it just feels nice. Reach out if you have any questions about that. So these are 6 activities that I found online from people just trying to find some activities that students might be able to use during counseling residency to kind of calm down. The first one is draw your breath, and is pretty self-explanatory, but you take a pen or a crayon or whatever, and you start by noticing your breath. And is it erratic or is it calm, and drawing the lines and not picking up your pen. And when you're going in and out, just drawing your breath with a pen or a pencil. Notice how the lines change, and do they start to slow down, and just putting a physicality to that breath when you need to calm down. Or if you need to bring yourself up and you're like, I need to get out of this almost catatonic state, the next one, draw emotion using lines. This one was imagining, like using index cards. This can be an activity for feelings, or it can be for how you're feeling. But if you imagine an insect feeling the way that you're feeling and how it would fly, and start to draw the lines, then you can kind of take it out of your head and put it on paper, and kind of empathize with the insect, therefore empathizing with yourself and giving yourself some grace. That was, I thought, a beautiful image and idea. Mapping your feelings is like drawing a body, and when something is big that's bubbling up, you can observe your feelings by saying, where in the body is this, and noting that. What actions do you want to take? Like, do I need to move my arms, or do I need to take a walk? And that one is nice to put like a physical spot to it. The next one, art therapy. This was so interesting. They just listed like, this is an art therapist who does some blogging online, and notices if you are tired, try drawing flowers. If you are bored, color a sheet in different various colors. If you're confused, draw a mandala. If you're anxious, do some origami. And one big one was to make sense of your feelings, draw a self-portrait, see like how your face lines up when you're drawing that self-portrait. The last two, color, shapes, and lines, without using words. And this is another just exercise with empathizing with yourself. Just kind of what we did today, like having mindfulness in the beginning and making that a big part of it, and using colors, shapes, and lines to draw your feelings. And then doodling with shapes. This was an easy one too, where you just put a cup down and draw a line around the cup, and then using that small space to draw, just try and keep all of your lines really close together. And you can use bubbles or simple flowers, squares, dots, spirals, just to get your feelings out on paper, and just more activities. So I'm going to transition to yours. I know as we're getting close to time, 10 more minutes. Sorry.
Sure. Yeah. Well, and I'm just thinking, like, Meg, your activity came to you after those long days. So those example activities would really be great to close up a day, to have everyone in the room do, or like you can start this and take it with you tonight. And if you want to continue working on it, that would be a nice flow. So, I mean, letting that flow into this slide, like we said earlier, really paying attention to what kind of energy structure do we want in the room. And so, of course, starting any new group with icebreakers, I think that's the one that everyone knows. I also like to start the entire residency experience with an activity called Fears in a Hat. And I want to do a shout out to Dr. Lori Soli, who really mentored me when I was starting to teach residency. So many of these activities were taught to me. So I'm not taking credit for being the originator of any of these. So Fears in a Hat, you give everybody Post-it notes, and you have them write down one fear that they have about the residency experience on each Post-it note, as many as they can come up with. And then you put them all in a hat, so nobody knows, use the same color Post-its, so nobody knows whose is what. And then one at a time, you pull out the fears, and someone can put them up on the board. And what students end up seeing is that there's like 12 different fears that all say, I'm afraid I won't be good enough. Like, oh, I didn't know you felt that. I'm not the only one. Oh, and then, some of the fears can can be addressed by the instructor right then and there, of like, yes, you will get a lunch break. Yes, you are allowed to go to the bath, like some can be very practical and logistical and some are a little deeper. Then I usually move into a mirror walk. So getting students to move their bodies, because after they've been in kind of the fears in a hat mode for a little while, because that one takes a little while, like they've been connecting with the fear and like feeling like, oh my gosh, here we go. So getting into the mirror walk where they're physically moving their body with a partner, and it's essentially just being a mirror. One partner leads and does like really funny walks or movements, and the second person just has to completely mirror them. So this also then is a nice entry into discussion and practice of the importance of nonverbal skills in a counseling relationship. Strike a pose. This one, I don't necessarily do this right after mirror walk. I might save this for a different day because it's another physical full body activity. So it's great for after lunch. It's great if you just need, again, some giggles in the room. So strike a pose is like emotional strike a pose. So I might call out a feeling word and everybody has to like put their body in the position that to them exemplifies that emotion. Secret feedback Santa or secret feedback partner. We start this at the end of day one, and everybody gets paired up with another student in the room. And for the rest of the residency time, they are sort of watching and noticing that their partner and writing down little notes so that at the very end of the residency set of days, they can say, hey, I was your secret feedback Santa. I really wanted you to know I appreciated it when you did this, or I really saw you grow in this area and keep working on this. And it's very much an encouraging activity. Picture perfect goal setting. This gets into, the value of imagery and visualization. So you can, and we didn't do this, Meg, but you can bring in old magazines and just, spread out all the pages and the pictures. And at the beginning, students can say, here's my goal for the weekend. And this is where I want to be at the end. And so they take that picture with them and just keep it, maybe posted in their room at night and check in with it. Container of personal information. I do this with little lunch bags. So this, because students are going to be doing lots and lots of role plays, and it's valuable if they use their own real stuff within reason. And so I ask them to put from a degree of depth, like put what you would tell your neighbor to put what you might tell only your closest friend. And again, using Post-it notes, put it in the bag. Seal it up. And then as you move through the weekend, you can go in and you can choose what you're willing to bring into a role play. And trying to pick up the pace here, expectations, norms, and concerns. This is a nice collaborative activity, again, at the beginning of residency to help students feel like they are co-creating the experience with you as the faculty. So you do these rounds. Apparently I really like Post-it notes, but we do a round of list down all your expectations, one expectation on each Post-it note. What do you expect to get from this weekend? What norms do you want to establish for this group? What are our rules? And that's very important because, of course, any group experience is going to have their ups and downs and celebrations and conflicts. So if the group has established their own norms, the group is then able to feel empowered to say, hey, that felt like it wasn't really in alignment with our norms. Can we revisit that a little bit? So it's not just the faculty feeling the responsibility of managing the group. And then later in the weekend or the days, I really like to do an inner critic meditation and drawing. So there's a guided one online. It's easy to find. You have the students just listen along. And then at the end of the meditation, draw basically their own inner critic, put it on paper. So again, similar to what Meg was saying before, it allows this distancing and empathy and even dialogue with the inner critic to say, hey, thanks for your concern. I appreciate you wanting to protect me, but I'm going to have you sit over here. Let's have you sit in this chair over here because actually you're getting in the way right now. And then various types of role plays. I imagine many faculty are are familiar with the different types of role plays. So sessions that you're not allowed to ask questions, fish bowls, And then, of course, always closing up the day with some sort of mindfulness, grounding, or containment activity. Kristen, I think if you're talking about the website for the inner critic, I actually got it from calm.com. One of their guided meditations has the self-critic. I'm not sure if that was, oh, that wasn't probably to me. Okay. And would we be willing to share the slip, please? What's the slip?
Is that the PowerPoint, like the
Oh,
presentation?
we can share the,
maybe?
I think and this is all recorded, so you'll have access to this recording as well.
Yeah.
And you're welcome to email us, and I'll put my email in the chat if anybody.
Do mine too.
So I know we are like right up to the end. So Chris, I don't even know if we may not have time for questions, because I know we have to move from room to room.
No, we do not have time for questions. It was a great presentation. I'm sorry I had to jump in and out at the beginning. But thank you for your presentation. Thank you everyone for joining us. I did put a message in the chat box that our OCE website is currently down. The server has crashed, which is a wonderful problem to have when you are hosting a conference.
Oh, no.
We sent an email to any to participants with the joining information for the next session. So check your emails to get the links for your next sessions that you're planning on going to. And we hope to have our website up and running again shortly. Thank you everyone for joining us, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.